Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Yeah, music.
Oh, Dave.
Music.
Music.
It's that's it.
It's also
music. And calm.
I'll get to this point later, but yes, and calm. Primarily
music
calm.
and calm. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
And my name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched The Commitments.
The Commitments.
Calm.
Hey, what's this?
What's what?
Have you got soul? If so, the world's hardest working band is looking for you. Contact Jay Rabbit.
I'm putting a band together.
Do you need a singer? Wise men say.
Who are your influences?
Led Zeppelin.
Sinead O'Connor. Barry Manilow.
Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell.
Wings.
Well, what kind of music are we going to be playing, Jimmy?
Soul.
Soul.
Calm.
Commitments.
The Commitments.
The Commitments.
Fuck, that's why didn't they name it that?
I don't know. He's not even listed in the cast on Wikipedia.
Bullshit.
And he's fucking Cole Meany. How dare you?
Hey, welcome to the show, everybody.
Hello.
I want to thank Mickey for Therapy 2023, our Patreon producer who had us watch The Commitments. They have a list of stuff for us, Tom. Spoilers, it's all music stuff.
Oh, okay.
Including one movie that I quite like that we'll get to next. But thank you, Mickey, for Therapy 2023.
Now I'm going to have to wait 45 minutes so I can ask you what it is off mic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could tell you what it is now, I guess. No, you know what? Let's wait. Let's wait. That's more fun for people to not know. But thank you, Mickey. Thank you very much. I had never seen this movie from 1991. This is a movie out of Dublin, Ireland. Yeah, I don't know if it's officially. It was based off a novel, and I think in the novel it wasn't Dublin specifically, and it's about a group of young, well, not young, group of like
20s
kids, mostly kids, 20-ish people from Dublin who start a soul band. The way they made this movie, again, based off a novel, which I'm very curious about what the novel was. They auditioned real musicians for this movie. In fact, most of the people in the movie aren't actors. Only a couple of them are actors of the main core cast. That is, obviously Cole Meany's an actor.
Yeah.
But it's mostly, they did like a huge fucking like audition, like thousands of people. It was a big deal. This movie was not a huge success, but it was like a big marketing thing in 91. Like, I think it was an indie darling. They advertised for older audiences, which makes sense. At first, they wanted to advertise it for younger audiences, which makes less sense.
Playing soul standards.
They did like parties with record companies and stuff. To me, so my hot take on this film is this movie feels like a soundtrack that had a supplemental movie. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
What did you think of this movie?
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
It's real. I see why people liked it. I see its charm. It is a charming movie. It's extremely basic. It's the story of the rise and fall of a band, but it's condensed within the span of a couple of weeks. Like, this band has a meteoric rise and fall over the course of, I think, 3 shows. And then they implode.
I admire what they're trying to do here. But I don't think they did it quite well enough. I was thinking about this is that, remember that CBGB movie?
I didn't watch it, but I remember it, yeah.
Oh, okay. That movie is very boring. unless you really like punk music. And then you're like, ooh, look at that. Oh, it's fucking Ron from Harry Potter playing Cheetah Chrome. That's neat. Or it's like, oh fuck, it's the Talking Heads. You know, like it's fun to listen to these covers basically of songs you like. But the actual story of CBGB isn't like incredible. It's kind of like how we talk about biopics, right? Where biopics
where sometimes
of musicians,
the story's not there. The fame and notoriety is there, but there's not really much of a story behind it. Yeah.
Right. What baffles me is that the Commitments aren't a real band, so they could tell whatever story they wanted to here. And to me, it really felt like a really anticlimactic story of a band that like made me feel like I was just like, Tom, you were in a band, right?
I was.
Yeah. I lived with a band, and it just felt like when I lived with a band. Whereas like, yeah, you go to their shows. That's it. That's what happens.
Yep, they fight
a lot.
Like there's a lot of fighting. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wasn't even sure what the movie was trying to say ultimately.
I don't know that it was necessarily trying to say much outside of like the ending statement where the manager guy who basically puts the band together like on a whim.
Yes. They make putting a band together really seem really simple because like all these people audition for this. Like it starts with this kid who's at this marketplace and he's buying stuff up. He's selling kids a copy of Mississippi Burning on the bus. Did you catch that?
I did, Dave.
Those the bus kids. I looked into it. This is the director of Mississippi Burning. That's why. But
that
it's very funny that these kids are like, "Oh, you got that copy of Mississippi Burning for me?" It's like, the what? All these kids gonna go home and watch this together? It's real fucking Barton Fink Simpsons.
It
energy.
really is, yeah.
Mississippi Burning. Yeah, this is director of that as well as The Life of David Gale and Evita, which, yeah,
Life of David Gale. Ooh.
I didn't see that movie.
Yes, you have.
I know how it ends, but I haven't.
We've watched it together, Dave.
No, we haven't.
Yes,
we haven't seen The Life of David Gale
you
together.
made me watch it, Dave.
The Life of David Gale.
Yes.
I have not seen that movie.
I swear you made me watch The Life of David Gale.
I would not make you watch The Life of David Gale. I haven't seen it.
Yes, you would. It is 1,000% the kind of movie you would make me watch.
Yes, but I don't remember. I don't think. Maybe I was really drunk.
We totally watched it. No, you weren't drunk.
I've never seen The Life of David Gale.
I swear we watched it.
I don't. We might have watched it, but I've never seen it.
Oh, man.
If we've watched it, I was under so much.
I swear we watched it.
Never seen Life of David.
It might have been.
Sorry.
It might have been at Cracked House, so you may have been hammered.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It might have been on while I was present, but I don't think
I may have been in the room when the television was on.
The movie was produced by Nicolas Cage.
Oh shit!
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was going to say is the last thing he says, this manager character, is he keeps doing this thing throughout the movie where he's interviewing himself. He's like imagining himself on what I assume is probably a popular program in the UK. But he's mimicking the voice of some presenter asking him questions. And he gets to the end, and he's like, well, what was the point of it all? And he's like, well, no, even though we were only together I like to think that like I opened up their, how does he phrase it? He says like, I showed them like now they want more out of life that they've had this experience. Like, so he's trying to talk about,
bad. Yeah,
how like it wasn't a failure because they didn't make it, and some of them went on to be in a band, like the drummer does and the singer does, and I think maybe one other person goes on to continue being in bands, but like
the lady that he's with at the end, becomes a singer. Yeah, I don't think the movie executed that very well.
It was really rushed. Yeah.
Yes, they don't
really do anything with that theme until that point.
Right. It feels like the story. This is why I'm like, what the fuck is the novel? Because this movie felt like it was all around, like all the music scenes. I feel like they play complete songs. Like I feel like 50% of this movie is just watching a band.
Yes,
perform.
half of this movie, no shit, is just they do play several songs in their entirety.
Right. So like what the fuck was the novel? Cuz the story that's around this movie feels like it's very basic like you said, and it's all there to just serve, and then they sing a song.
It's almost like, I'm not sure if fable is the right word or parable, but it's like so simple. It's like one of Aesop's fables or something. Like it's reduced down to just its basic points. Like it's about the allure of stardom and how fame can get to anybody. Even a small amount of fame can get to somebody's head. But it's so basic though.
And it has some problems with that because like what you're saying, this idea of like these people starting a band and it gives them the ability to aspire to be more than they are.
Yeah.
Good idea. The problem is the main character has no arc.
No.
He is just he just starts doing the interviews and being like, I'm going to start a band. And then he just does it. And then all these people want to audition. And I'm like, who is this kid? Like, I felt like I didn't know who the lead singer was because everybody's like, oh, I want to be in your band. And I was like, is this kid famous? Why is everybody wanting to be in his fucking band? Why did he decide to start a band? It feels like it starts in the middle of a movie. And then when all the characters start to get together to sing and play instruments and stuff, I was like, I don't know who these people are. They just showed up. And I don't know what their arc is. They don't really have an arc. They just start as like, you know, like they have regular jobs. And then, yeah, they sort of make it a little. And so it just felt like there wasn't the characters that have the most change are the secondary characters, so we don't spend that much time with them. And they never really bother to stop and tell us like who these people are in a meaningful way. So they all just feel like kind of NPCs for this like let's make a band game that this guy's playing.
Very much so.
And it all seems to serve, we just really want to make a soundtrack. And then on top of it, and this isn't a hit against them. Like, again, this is an enjoyable enough film. I just am very
funny.
baffled by it.
Yeah.
On top of it, the soundtrack is all covers. So it's not even original music. So it's just watching a cover band.
Right. Play very famous soul songs.
Yeah. So it just felt like a lot of like, it felt a little bit like catnip for a certain audience that would go and watch this movie, this indie darling, that had a lot of familiar songs they knew and not much of a story, and then they'd make some money on the soundtrack.
This was a genre for a time. This is something I really wanted to talk about, where there was this genre of, it was like a British movie about small town blue collar people coming together to do something extraordinary in this, like this, and then go back to their blue collar lives. So there was like this, there's like the full Monty, Calendar Girls, and it's
again,
like Waking Ned Divine,
like these indie fads almost, right?
Waking Ned Divine was the one about the dead guy that won the lottery, right?
Yes,
that one. That's one I was thinking of. So there was like a lot of these movies that came out around this time, like
I feel out of northern
in the
England
90s,
and Ireland,
northern England and Ireland, yeah.
Again, it was a fad we had. They mentioned Sinead O'Connor in this. They mentioned that, like, you know, America and the world had this brief love affair
with Irish
with that part of the
music,
world.
yeah. U2 and Sinead O'Connor, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, and there definitely is this, like you said, genre of look at these like regular folk doing something that you wouldn't expect them. And I think nowadays, I think that's part of the problem is like, that's such a 90s kind of naive thing, because nowadays that's the other part of this movie. I was like, so what? Like, oh, they're playing soul music. Cool. Like, so what? Like, and I did pick up on like what you're saying, that this was a fad at the time. Now it feels like, because of the internet, everybody can do anything. You know what I mean?
Right,
so it's like,
I think we didn't even realize that at the time either, but that's always been the case. Like,
yeah, of course.
Who was U2 before they were U2? They were just a bunch of fucking assholes from Ireland. Like, there were nobody. You know, there were also people who just had shit jobs. You know,
it's the Susan Boyle thing.
Yeah,
where they're like, "Can you believe she can sing?" And it's like, why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't I? Fucking yeah, like where do
people look different and sing? That has there's no way. How you look is no relation to. Same with where you're from. Like, can you believe that these people from Dublin can sing soul?
Like
and it's like, yeah.
They had to find Sinatra. Like, you know, like it's...
Right.
This was, I think, this genre also sort of used... I don't remember the other films that I've mentioned as well, so I can't say this too definitively, but I do feel like this kind of genre of movie sort of just leaned on that like as a crutch. Like that was like it's like this movie really expects us to get a lot out of, or it seems to expect us to get a lot out of the idea that these are just working class people who never even thought about being in a band, and all of a sudden they just tried out for a band on a a whim or whatnot, and now they're the talk of the town. They really thought that was going to do a lot for us as the audience, it seems.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Again, it feels like it's really of its time because there's nothing wrong with this movie.
No, it's
just
perfectly
watching
charming and funny. It's just like it's pretty superficial.
It's watching it removed from that like weird fad that it was a part of. It feels like you're like, okay, and like this is not quite the right comparison, but it's like how Blair Witch Project, I assume if you showed it to a young kid, they'd be like, well, okay, and then what? Like that was it. And it's like, don't you get it? It was really creepy at the time. And it's like, was it though? We have tons of found footage movies, you know what I mean? I'd like to think Blair Witch Project has more staying power than that, but that was the best comparison I could think of.
Yeah.
Where it's like that part of what made Blair Witch big was the gimmick itself that we are now completely accustomed to.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's definitely a part of this because, taking that out of this, I really struggled to like. I struggled to like not pay attention, but stay like that interested in what was happening because there was just I really like the basic idea. So you already sort of said what it is. Like 40 minutes into this movie, they play like their second set. Like it takes fucking forever. We get like the first act of this into the second act. They're like forming the band.
Mm-hmm.
They play a show at like a local church place. And it's cute. Everybody's into it.
A local church place.
Church place. Church? Is that the word for it?
Church place.
A church place. It didn't look like it was a church.
Yeah.
Was it not a church place?
I don't know. You're right. I couldn't tell if it was like the church or if it was like
a community center.
Their community
like
center or something.
Church event is the more
a church event.
Is the better way to put it.
I did love how much Colm loved Elvis in this movie.
Yeah.
We get a lot of Colm singing Elvis.
Colm Meaney's hair is the main event of this movie.
It's the same hair he always has.
Yeah, no, it's more curly. It's more like Elvis. Because the idea is he's an Elvis fan.
That's true. Yeah.
So they give him this like greaser hair.
That's true.
They
do
curl it up a lot. Yeah. No, it's definitely slightly. It's different. I'm Googling it right now just so I can look at it while talking about it. Colm Meaney. I want to see it. Everybody Google
his hair is
The Commitments Colm Meaney.
It's more human than human in this movie.
Oh yeah, they give him big sideburns and shit.
Hell yeah, they do. Yeah.
And his whole thing is he's just Elvis guy, which I feel like we all have known an Elvis guy. Obviously, it's more of a boomer generation thing.
I never knew an Elvis guy.
I knew an Elvis guy. They they're fun to a limit. Because it's like, I get it.
Elvis is fine, sure.
Elvis is fine, exactly.
Like, being like that into Elvis, it's like, all right.
He's the main character's father in this.
He sure is.
And it feels like you can't make a movie that takes place in Dublin without, like, it's like legally you had to have Colm Meaney
he's
in
there somewhere.
So he's like just a side character, but he's basically like, I did like his arc, which is like, he's kind of making fun of his kid, who, again, we don't really know much about. He's just some guy who lives with his parents. And I don't know why his parents, like, why Colm Meaney doesn't have that much faith in him, but he doesn't. And then he, like, sees the band for the first time and realizes, like, oh, shit, they're good. He actually made a good band. It's kind of the idea, right? Is they play this show. People realize, like, shit, they're actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then they play another show, and it gets more draw. And then they play a third show, which the whole idea is there's this like soul musician that is gonna be there. Wilson Pickett. Yeah. And it's like the big promise that this is gonna like elevate them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
right, they have this trumpet player named, what do they call him? Big Lips, or that's not
Big
right.
Lips or
Hot
something
Lips
like
or
that.
something.
Hot Lips.
But it seems
The
like
Lips. It's just the Lips. Joey the Lips
Joey
Fagan.
the Lips. Okay, it seems
Who
like
looks
he
like
might.
the fucking guy from The Witch. He looks. He's
He does
he's-
kind of look like Ralph Ineson.
yeah, and he's way older than everybody else, and he proceeds to systematically fuck all the women in the band.
He sure does.
Yeah, all the very young women.
Yeah,
That's his whole thing.
they really.
That's just his deal.
They really make it seem like he might be full of shit because he's talking about
Yeah.
how he knows all these old musicians. And he's like, "Yeah, I know Wilson Pickett personally. I'll get him to come up. I'll get him to come to our show, and he'll jam with us. It'll be great."
Yeah. He basically fucks the band apart.
He does.
Like he
to pieces, to
single-handedly
smithereens, Dave.
fucks
He
the band
fucks
to
it to
pieces.
smithereens.
Yeah, he does. And yeah, what happens is Wilson Pickett doesn't show up. They think he's they're like, you fucked us, Lips. And then the band essentially and it's been a long time coming because they do this thing where they keep bickering backstage, and they break up after three sets. Their last one being very good. The whole idea is when they're on stage, they're very good. And then as he's walking home, he sees Wilson Pickett's limo go by, and they ask for directions, and they realize he was going to come. He was late. So it's about a brush with greatness, right? It's about this idea
Yeah.
of what could have been.
Touching greatness. Yeah.
Yeah, which is not a bad idea for a movie. I like the idea that it's only 3 shows. I think that's fun.
I wish they would have explored it a little more, right? Because it's so, which I guess that was what this movie wanted to be. Obviously, this movie's a comedy. It's very light and it's charming and it is funny throughout. But I really do like it. It does have that interesting kernel of an idea. And I wish they would have explored that more instead of going. And instead, it's just extremely superficial and just the most profound it gets about its theme is just baldly stating the theme, pretty much.
Yeah, and I don't even think it kind of nailed the theme perfectly because there was more to say. I liked the fact that they basically they do the thing where they the music when they're playing the music, they're unified, right? That's kind of one of the themes.
Yeah.
While they're tearing each other to pieces behind the scenes, they hate each other.
Yeah.
But the music brings them together
music
for
unites
these fleeting
them, yeah.
moments.
Yeah.
And I think it's supposed to be about this idea of these fleeting moments that makes music beautiful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think the punk genre has a lot of this. There's a lot of punk bands that come and go.
It's a
Operation Ivy famously has one album and has made a big impact. This idea of a small band, there's of course the idea of artists who are only appreciated after they die. This idea of art being this fleeting thing and music being a perfect,
right.
the most clear analogy for that.
Right. It can unite people for 2 or 3 minutes. 2 or 3
Yeah, and
2 or
when a
3
band
minutes of
plays-
perfection.
It can make Jordan Peterson cry,
It's true. Just weep.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
little tears streaming down his little polyester socked face.
But it's a live show. That's the whole idea. And so this idea of this beautiful thing that happened in this pocket of Dublin that only a handful of people saw is a cool idea. The problem I thought was that the characters just there wasn't enough.
They weren't there.
Yeah. That they
They were really just archetypes because the movie is so superficial and there's so many characters. There's 12 people in the band. Well, 10, I think. 8 or 10 people in the band. It's a big band.
the movie was obsessed with the music,
Yeah.
which is weird to say, but it is a movie. It's not a music video. And so what I mean is that in the minutes that they spend, again, it feels like almost half the movie is spent watching this band play. In that time, you could have had more story and not just let's watch the band play. We don't have to see them play so many fucking songs and entire songs. You could have them play one song throughout for the end or do the beginning. They usually do that, that thing you do. I'm sure you hear the whole song at one point in that movie, right?
You do, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. But you don't keep showing them play different songs for 4 minutes, you kind of, It felt like it was trying to be a musical, but
It's interesting that you mentioned That Thing You Do, because I think That Thing You Do is a much more successful
Version of
execution of this very same idea.
right, because that movie talks about the dying. It's hard because like I don't think they need to hit it big. I think part of the fun is they don't hit it big.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was thinking, what would be a fun version of this is an even scaled down version where it's a ska band and their whole rise is to play for 15 people. Like that's the maximum they ever play for. Like the first show is like 3 people and they're all family members, and again, they only play like 5 shows and they know they've made it when they sell like 3 copies of their demo. And they're like, we did it. And then the movie ends. Because that's the idea, right? It doesn't matter how big or how small.
Right.
So like they're trying to show.
You did the thing. You made your mark. You shouted to the universe, I was here.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But that feels like it just falls flat when the people like I'm trying to think of like who the fuck were these people? It was a lead singer. The only thing we knew about him was he was like kind of a jackass. He worked at a bus wash.
A drunk guy at a wedding.
Yeah. That's the other thing. They just sort of pick people and like there's this. The movie doesn't care to tell us their relationships. You know what I mean? Where they're like, he's at the wedding and he's singing. And at first I thought like, is he a member of the band? Is he their friend? And then later they just go to him and they're like, you should do it. And he's like, you saw me at that wedding? And I'm like, do they know him? Like, have they met before?
It just seems like it's a small town thing. Like they all seem to at least know of each other.
It's like, yeah, but it makes it very fever dreamy where it's like, did I miss a part? And then they bring in these 3 women and they just bring them on because one of them's hot. And then they just like,
they're all hot, but like
they're all hot, but they think one of them's
blonde.
The thing. Yes. So. They want to get all up in one of them.
Yeah.
And so they're like, as long as you bring her, and then they all can just miraculously sing.
Yeah, of course. Everybody.
That's the other part of this. Everybody just they bring people on who like the guy who at the wedding who's like, oh, I was just drunk and singing, and then he has like an immaculate voice.
Right, he's one of the musicians. He's one of the real musicians. He's like an incredible vocalist, and they're like,
good actor,
I was
by
just.
the way.
He actually He really is. Like,
they're all pretty good.
He's the most interesting character, I think.
I think so too. Yeah,
but like, he has like an incredible voice, and he's like, oh, I was just drunk at this wedding.
Right, and so they don't do the work there because again, it almost feels like watching like a Beatles movie where it's like they all are like pretending they don't know each other and come together or something. Where it's like,
well, you just did the thing. I was about you said come together. I was gonna say I was thinking it's like one of those movies where it's like there's some really overwrought scene where they write some famous song that obviously the scene never happened, but it's like, I think we should call this song Come Together, or
but you know what I mean, where it feels like the people in this movie were already a famous band and they needed to write a reason for them to get together or something. It's so beholden to the music that it has no like realistic process for like the band actually forming. The way they're picking people, like they do this long audition for one member and then they just pluck the rest of the people off the street, which I thought was really fucking weird. That they like, who do they hold the audition for? It's like one of the trumpet players has to like do this long audition and then everybody else, they're just like, yeah, can you do it? Like their bouncer becomes their drummer,
right,
and stuff like that.
Like they're this violent
like, what happened
maniac.
to the long audition?
Yeah, that they had as their bouncer. Their drummer has to quit, and then they just sort of cut to their violent, maniacal bouncer just annihilating the drums like an expert. And like, yeah, we're teaching him. And I'm like, you're teaching him? He seems like a conservatory student.
Right, and it creates this weird problem where like the main character again has no arc and he doesn't even have standards that make sense, where it's like at first
it just seems like he just wants
manager.
to make a band just because the universe told him to make a band, like Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams.
Right, and I thought his arc was he's gonna become a monster and like start throwing people out, but then he's like does this
he's very
heavy
passive.
audition except when he's not. Because again, he does this huge audition and throws out all these people, and then he's really passively just being like, "Yeah, you can be in the band."
Like for like after the audition, he's like a very passive presence in the film. Like the band implodes on its own. He's
a bad manager.
He doesn't have anything to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, because he doesn't help them in any way.
No.
Really. He doesn't get them paid. There's like that brief thing where the guy like wants his money and gets beat up. Again, it feels or like a Prince movie, like fucking what's it called?
Purple Rain.
Purple Rain, or the other one, the better one,
Under the Cherry Moon.
Under the Cherry Moon. Yeah, that's the better one.
Yeah, that one rocks.
Where it's like a series of vignettes. You know what I mean? Where it's like a series of low stakes vignettes where you're like, there's no like overreaching arc. And there's no like plant and payoff. They're just like this guy who's like, "Where's my money?" And then they fight him and kick him out. And then that story is over at like halfway through the movie. So it really feels like they're making a movie around an already famous group, except they're not already famous. And that's what makes it all feel very weird. Where at times I did Google, I was like, is this already a band? Is this like a band movie? Because it feels like a band movie. But it's not.
It's not.
So it's really weird.
Yeah,
I don't
know. It really did remind me of like the Full Monty, where it's just like we're supposed to. It seems like we're supposed to get a lot out of the premise itself. Like, oh, it's these people.
Yeah.
These nobody knock around people around Dublin getting together to make this great soul band for 3 shows.
And they're all good at the comedy aspects, the performing. It's just it's just like it's by the end it's just they're squabbling and then they play on stage, they squabble, they play on stage, back and forth, and like stuff happens but it doesn't go anywhere,
and they break up very anticlimactically too. It's just, I mean, which makes sense. Like I like that because that's usually how it goes. Like that's the way it is in That Thing You Do too. They just sort of break up. It just sort of happens, and you're like, you can't believe it's happening. But
no, the movie felt really realistic for how a band advances and breaks up.
Yeah.
To which I say, like, well, that's boring.
Not much of a movie, yeah.
Unless you have the characters, you do stuff with the characters that's interesting. And they keep almost doing it. So, again, the lead singer, he's a drunk. The first thing that happens is he makes a fucking embarrassment of himself singing on stage. So you think something's going to happen with that. But not really.
Nope.
He becomes kind of a prima donna, and then you think like booze is going to get the better of him to the point that there's a part where he orders the same drink that he had at the wedding, that he got too drunk with.
Right.
So I
So
thought
you
like,
think something's going to
foreshadowing
happen,
it.
yeah.
But then nothing
and then
happens.
it just doesn't.
And they just sort of he becomes the drummer quits because he doesn't like him. Which again, really anticlimactic thing to happen, where it's like, okay, like that does happen in bands, you know? This is like a documentary about a band. Meanwhile, the other trumpet player is he's plowing through the band. He's plowing through all the ladies.
He really is.
And they start
this fucking old Skeletor trumpet player.
Right, which again didn't really end up being anything.
Tooting on the brass. Yeah, he really didn't. Yeah. Like
he's just like this weird old scumbag.
They do a thing where they make us think that he might be full of shit, but then they show that Wilson Pickett actually was coming to the show. So like, I guess he wasn't, and that's all. That's it. That's the end of it.
And all those ladies just all fight each other, but they don't seem like that sore about it either. It's kind of like they escalate their fighting because they're like, oh my god, you're fucking him too. And that's that. And then, like, the drummer, like we said, quits and gets replaced with the bouncer, and the bouncer proves to be fine. So it's like, okay,
not
like again,
like,
it's
great.
like setting up a joke, and then nothing happens.
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, so the bouncer, and they do a good part where he goes out to kick some guy's ass and comes back on.
He beats like 4 people's asses, and then comes back.
Blood's on him.
Yeah.
Which is, again, a bunch of fun moments, but it's not shaping any like story around these characters. The backup singers, one of them is like working in a little chips truck. And I think she ends up making something of herself. They don't really. One of them marries the main guy because they have a single scene where she's like, "I'm kind of into you," but it doesn't go anywhere. Again, she just sort of says like, "You want to do something?" He's like, "No, I'm your manager." And then later, he's just like, "Yeah, we're dating now. We're together." And it's like, oh, maybe show that relationship.
I guess that worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe show something happening amongst these characters. I'm struggling to remember because it's a huge band. There's the trumpet player that they auditioned for. I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. I don't even know. Did he have an arc?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think he
They
just
set up.
yeah.
I don't even know why was that guy asking for money, because I know they do the thing where
Well,
did he borrow equipment from somebody?
it just seems like a couple of the characters owe people money. Like the manager owes these guys money, and that's why he starts getting beat up, and that's when the drummer runs into the audience to beat him up. But then like the singer gets beat up after their last show, and it's just because he has gambling debts, but it's because he's not being paid for the show, so he can't pay them.
Right.
And then he gets his ass beat. Like I think it's just another thing to show, to like bring them back down to earth, right? Like when they're on stage, they're this great band and they have fans, and like you said, it's this brush of greatness, like this touching greatness
Right.
for this brief
The idea
moment.
that once they're on stage, it's all behind them. They can
Right.
forget all these things. Yeah.
But once they come back down, it's like he's getting like the lead singer who all these, like it literally happens. He goes out back and like 6 women come up to him wanting his autograph, and then he gets the shit kicked out of him from some guy who just wants his gambling money. Like
Right.
it's really showing the split there, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. Like that's all fine, but it still feels like it was almost like they were like hiding the drama. Like they were
Right,
like,
like,
no,
this
you
is-
don't want to see drama.
Like this is like the only real moment of drama we get, really, is this scene where the singer gets his ass kicked. I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think of other.
It's
Again, them yelling at each other,
right? But all that is kind of treated kind of funny, like it's
yeah,
like it's supposed to be. It's treated like, oh, it's a band bickering, and the movie's kind of bewildering in that way. It's
it really like Cole Meany, doesn't he just kind of vanish from the film?
yeah. He has about 2 or 3 scenes, and then halfway through, we just never see him again.
And they set up an arc where he's like, I don't take you and your band seriously. You'd think there'd be some final beat with him. But again, the movie just seems to forget it's a movie most of the time. And it's just like, well, let's listen to this music.
Right. It's like
That's
a series.
kind of it.
It's like a series of sketches on an
Right.
album.
Yeah. Again, it feels like they were just making an album and trying to like sell an album. And I think, I don't know, this didn't do that great. Let's see, I had it here. It only made about 15 million, and it has a budget of 12 to 15 million. So,
Yeah.
I think they were really leaning on the idea that people were going to fucking love the music. And the thing is, it did get good reviews. It's not a
bad movie. It's just
not a bad
it's
movie.
just a very
I just don't know what the
superficial
point of
one.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's funny is there are other movies like this that I like. The movie that I didn't mention that we're going to do later is very similar to this movie. Very similar in that it's about putting together a band and just making a band. And it's not a lot happens in it, but it's a little more focused on the characters. And I think the music's good in this too. Like that again, the music's good in this, but it was like I found myself like gravitating towards like, doing stuff on my computer because it felt like background noise.
Yeah. Like
This whole movie.
like the music in The Big Chill is good too, but it's just because it's like a bunch of old pop hits.
Yeah.
Like these are a bunch of old soul hits. So it's like, yeah, of course the music's good.
Right. The movie that I cannot name because that's the game I'm playing now has original music, which kind of helped. It in fact won Oscars for its music. So like, I think this can be done well. This like small stakes. Let's just kind of follow these people making a band. But I think in order to really do that, you have to have a grasp on the characters. You have to make people like the characters and want to follow them. Because otherwise, like, this music is good. It's not something I love. So I'm like, yeah, it's not enough. It's just not enough. Ultimately, like, this movie is not enough movie. That's really it.
No, I think that's right. Like, it does feel, like I said, it feels like a series of sketches. Like, it's so light.
Yeah, it's maybe like 30 minutes worth of story.
What was the movie we watched last? God, it's probably been a year now. About the punk band. It was the Canadian film.
Oh, yeah, the fake documentary.
Yeah.
Someone's screaming the name.
Yeah, like, that was a really, really good exploration of this same idea. Like, it's a very, very similar idea.
Because they added drama. Because again, it's not even based off a real band. You can do whatever you want. You can still make it realistic. You know, it doesn't have to be outlandish. It doesn't have to be Green Room. They don't have to fight Nazis.
Hardcore logo.
You know,
hardcore logo.
Hardcore logo. Thank you. But if you're going to make it just a regular drama comedy, you have to think about other drama comedies and what makes those work, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have character arcs, and you have to have things happen. And things do have to be a little exciting because it's a movie, right?
Right. We need,
like, most
some
drama
stakes,
comedies tend to have shit happen. You know, like people die at least, or like people fall in love. Things that don't necessarily happen every day. Because the whole point is, why are you watching this? And like, that is my ultimate feeling, is just like, I felt like I was just watching a band
pretty much
exist.
Yeah.
And then stop existing, and not for anything that was like, I was like, yeah, that's how that happens. You know, like,
yep, pretty much.
It's like a movie like Clerks, where it's like, okay, it's a day in the life. You have to lean on the comedy and the conversations. And even Clerks obviously has an arc.
Clerks has a very distinct arc, yeah.
Yeah, and even in Clerks, someone fucks a dead guy, and there's fights. And
it escalates, like, and there's drama, and there's a climax. There's an emotional climax, right. Yeah.
So, like, imagine Clerks if he just worked his shift and not much happened, and they had a couple of funny conversations.
Right, just imagine if Clerks was nothing but the Death Star conversation.
Exactly, and then it's like, well, there was some funny dialogue bits in there, but
it kind of seems pointless. Yeah,
yeah,
wasn't much of a story.
That's kind of what happened here. Yeah. So I don't know. I if you like soul music, check it out. If you like Cole Meany, you can fast forward and jerk off for just the first season.
Half, yeah.
Yeah.
Come real hard in the first half.
Yeah, come Meany.
Come Meany.
Yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, music's fine. I'm not mad at this movie. I just don't. I think that it is what we said, which is that at the time it was part of a trend, and now removed from that trend, it just kind of feels like it's lacking a lot of story to justify it, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I got, that's it.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Yeah. Good music.
Yeah.
Just perfectly.
It's a good band.
Fine.
They sound great.
Yeah. From the director of The Life of David Gale, a movie I have not seen.
Have fucking watched, Dave.
Haven't seen.
There's no reason I would have watched The Life of David Gale without your influence.
I'm imagining you like a flashback, and you're just watching it in an empty room with no one else.
Right, a Tyler Durden myself.
Yeah, exactly. Tyler Durden. You keep like laughing at it and nudging no one next to you. That was a good part. Like I said, I know it ends because I worked at the theater when it came out, so I saw the ending of it like 10 times. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember anything else.
Oh man, Dave, you exist, right?
I'm
not Tyler Durdening you.
I better. If I don't, then these podcasts would be really interesting. Where it's just you just talking and then silence.
I could be doing both voices. They don't know.
That's true. That is a possibility.
We can edit this together. You don't know.
Yeah. I could never have existed. God. What if I don't exist? Shit.
Man, maybe you don't.
Maybe.
Maybe you don't.
Mickey for therapy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I really like the vibes you're putting out. You know, I'm not a big music movie person, but
I am though. So keep them coming.
Like I said, I like the next one. I think it's going to be fun. There'll be ups and downs. And Mickey will keep it coming for sure. This was through our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefully unemployed, GAMEFULLY unemployed, for just $5 a month. You get access to exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. We watch movies every Friday night with our patrons as well.
Sure
That's
do.
a thing we love to do. Maybe we'll watch The Life of David Gale. There's no reason not to, right? There's not like any terrible reasons not to watch that movie.
No, I don't think there's anything objectionable about that movie whatsoever.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. We also have a store over at gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your soul-singing peepers onto those.
Yes. Slap them on there. And as always, if you're Cole Meany, you might want to stay away from us. I don't know what I'll do if I'm near you.
Yeah.
Just comb.
It'll probably be fine.
It'll probably be fine. I just want a lock of your hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that so much
Just
to
to
ask?
smell you. Just want to know what you smell like.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Is
give
that
me
so wrong?
all of your hair.
Yeah. All of it.